What would you do if you heard footsteps in your attic but found nobody there? What if you saw footsteps leading to your home, yet none going back? What if, days later, your entire family was brutally murdered while somebody, possibly the killer, stayed behind, feeding the animals and living in your house? This isn't the plot of some fictional horror film. This is the unsolved horror of the Hinterkaifeck Murders, a century-old mystery that remains as chilling today as it was in 1922. But our story starts 6 months earlier. The year is 1921. It's autumn, and the chill hangs in the air as the day grows shorter and the forests surrounding the Hinterkaifeck farm close in like silent sentinels. The farm is secluded, isolated, miles from the nearest neighbour. Here the Gruber family shares their quiet life with a single maid, a woman whose growing unease over the past weeks has turned into outright fear. She's noticed things, unsettling things. Each night as she lays in a small room, she hears creaks and shuffles, as if footsteps are moving just above her, pacing back and forth across the attic floor. At first she tells herself it's only the old house settling, just groans of timber shifting with the seasons. But the sounds don't stop. If anything, they grow louder, more deliberate, night after night, filling her with a creeping sense of dread. During the day, she mentions these noises to Andreas Gruber, the patriarch of the family, but he laughs her off, calling it silly superstition. Still, she can't shake the feeling that something is deeply wrong. She finds herself praying in whispers, clutching at anything familiar that could shield her from this silent, unseen force. And soon, she begins seeing things too, fleeting shadows from the corner of her eye, as if someone or something is watching her, slipping in and out of her sight. Each chore, every task seems to carry an ominous weight, and every room feels like it hides something just beyond the light. Finally, after weeks of restless nights and that gnawing, constant feeling of being watched, she makes her decision. Unable to endure the fear any longer, she packs her things, leaves Hinterkaifeck, warning the Gruber family that the house she believes is haunted. But her warnings fall on deaf ears, dismissed as mere hysteria. As she disappears down the road, leaving the farm and its secrets behind, the Gruber family remains at Hinterkaifeck, unaware that the strange occurrences she described ended up being a prelude to the most gruesome and baffling murder mystery of the last 150 years. A case that to this day remains one of the darkest unsolved crimes in history. With the harsh winter months passing, a sense of foreboding still lingers at Hinterkaifeck. The Gruber family, Andreas, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria and her 2 young children, carry on with their lives, surrounded by miles of barren fields and dense, whispering woods. Alone and isolated, they have only each other and whatever else might be lurking unseen. After the maid left, the strange events didn't disappear. They grew bolder, as if the house itself was coming alive. It starts with something almost innocent. A newspaper. One morning, Andreas Gruber finds it sitting on the kitchen table, folded as if someone had just been reading it. But when he looks closer, he realises it's not from the village, not even from a nearby town. No one in the family recognises it. No one bought it. It's as if it appeared from nowhere, a quiet, puzzling intruder left in the heart of their home. The unsettling events grow harder to brush off. On a cold January morning, Andreas steps outside, his boots crunching into the fresh layer of snow. But his heart skips a beat as he sees it. A single set of footprints, crisp and clean, leading from the dark edge of the woods directly up to the farmhouse. But there are no footprints leading back to the forest, only the chilling solitary trail that stops abruptly at their door, as if the visitor had vanished into thin air, or somehow slipped inside maybe. Andreas tries to explain it away. He tells himself it's just a trick of the mind, the paranoia of long dark winters in isolation. But at night, as the farmhouse falls into silence, even he can't deny the feeling, the sense that something is watching them from the shadows. The rest of the family begin to feel it too. Victoria, his daughter, finds herself constantly glancing over her shoulder, catching glimpses of movement just beyond her sightline. Sometimes, in the dead of night, her daughter, little Cecilia, named after her grandmother, wakes up crying, pointing to the window, insisting she's seen a shadow move across the glass. The family is uneasy, haunted by a presence they can't see, a presence that seems to step into the very walls that surround them, watching, waiting. On March 31st, 1922, Maria Baumgartner arrives at Hinterkaifeck. She's a fresh face, a small comfort to the family, someone to share in the routines and break the weight of solitude. Her sister drops her off, the two exchanging a final hug as the sun dips behind the trees. Neither of them know it, but Maria's first night on the farm would also be her last. As darkness falls over Hinterkaifeck, the farmhouse stands silent, bathed in the pale glow of moonlight. The world seems to hold its breath as an unnatural stillness settles over the land. A silence so deep, it feels as if the entire farm is waiting, anticipating something. This would be the calm before the storm, the final moments of peace before Hinterkaifeck's secrets are forced to the surface in blood and horror. That night, as shadows stretch across Hinterkaifeck Farm, the stillness feels heavier than ever, almost tangible. Inside, the family settles into their evening routine, unaware that the silence outside is hiding something sinister. No one knows the exact sequence of events, but what we do know is this. One by one, the Grubers were lured from the safety of the house into the dark, cold barn. Andreas Gruber is the first to step outside, perhaps drawn by a noise, perhaps an instinct to protect his family. He doesn't return. One by one, the rest of the family follows, each one drawn out, unaware of the horror awaiting them in the shadows. Inside the barn, under the cover of night, the family meets their end at the hands of an unseen assailant. Each is struck down with a weapon, a pickaxe-like tool, over and over. The brutality escalating with each blow. Even young Cecilia, Victoria's daughter, barely even old enough to understand, endures the terror. It said she clung to her mother's dress as the darkness closed in around her, pulling at her tiny fists. There, in the barn, the Grubers fall. their blood staining the cold earth beneath them. Back in the house, the killer makes their way through the remaining rooms. Maria Baumgartner, the new maid, is still in her quarters, settling in for her first night, unaware of the tragedy unfolding just outside. She never sees her attacker. Her life is taken in an instant, a horrific twist to a fresh start. And finally, poor baby Joseph, sleeping in his cot, becomes the last victim of the night. His cries silenced before they even have a chance to echo through the empty farmhouse. Days pass, and although neighbours begin to grow suspicious of the uncharacteristic silence from the farmhouse remains eerily undisturbed. On April 4th, 1922, neighbours finally decide to investigate. News of the murders reach the authorities swiftly, and the police arrive on the scene, but the Hinterkaifeck secrets won't give themselves up easily. The investigators are faced with a scene unlike anything they've ever experienced. In the barn, the bodies of Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria and young Cecilia lie together, brutalised almost beyond recognition. The brutal nature of the injuries indicate a crime of intense rage or calculated cruelty. Investigators note that the victim's skull had been smashed repeatedly with a heavy tool, likely a pickaxe or a farming instrument. But as horrifying as the murders are, the details that emerge during the investigation only deepen the mystery. Police quickly realise that the killer remained on the farm for days after the murders. The animals were fed, the family dog had been cared for, and the house appeared lived in, with food prepared and eaten. Who could be so cold as to live among the bodies of their victims, carrying on as if they belonged there? When questioning villagers, the police learned that Andreas Gruber had mentioned the footprints in the snow that led to the farmhouse but not away, and the odd noises coming from the attic. Some villagers suggest that Andreas believed he was being watched, but no one took these signs seriously. As the investigation unfolds, troubling details about the family emerge. Andreas Gruber was known as a harsh, demeaning figure, rumoured to have had an unsettling relationship with his daughter, Victoria. Neighbours whispered about a disturbing level of intimacy between them, even suggesting that young Joseph, Victoria's 2-year-old son, might actually have been fathered by Andreas. This scandalous rumour casts a dark shadow over the case, leading police to consider that the motive might lie within the family's twisted dynamics. Despite exhaustive efforts, the investigation yields no conclusive evidence pointing to a suspect. Authorities interview several individuals, including Lorenz Schleitenbauer, Victoria's former lover, who had once expressed a desire to marry her. Lorenz had his reason to resent the family, especially if he believed Andreas was the father of Joseph. When Lorenz joined the neighbours in discovering the bodies, his behaviour raised eyebrows. He seemed oddly familiar with the property, unlocking doors without hesitation and moving through the farmhouse with ease. Yet no direct evidence links him to the crime. With no fingerprints, no clear motive, and only circumstantial rumours, the investigation stalls. Desperate for answers, police even dismantled parts of the farmhouse, searching every single inch for clues. A weapon, a hidden letter, anything that might shed light on brutal events. But Hinterkaifeck holds its secrets tightly. Despite exhaustive efforts, the case runs cold, leaving behind only strange, unanswered questions. 102 years later, The Hinterkaifeck Murders remain an open case, unsolved and haunting. Theories range from vengeful locals to family feuds to unknown drifters passing through. Some even speculate that the killer was someone close to the family, trusted enough to gain access without raising alarm. And yet, with every theory comes another dead end, another piece of evidence that doesn't quite fit. To this day, the Hinterkaifeck Murders stand as one of Germany's most disturbing unsolved mysteries. The isolated farm is long gone, but the memory of what happened there lingers in the whispers of history, a chilling reminder that some places are haunted not by spirits, but by secrets. Who do you think did the murders? Do you have your own theory? Get in the comment section and let me know. Thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this latest video in the Halloween special series. If you have, please hit the like button and please subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to see more. Until next time, always remember, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean there isn't somebody out to get you. No, I'm kidding. You're probably fine. Probably.